Oh man, we have quite a few Spider-Man reviews coming up, and I'm looking forward to them. So, without further ado, let's get started. Hey guys, welcome back to the Green Goblin channel, and today I'm going to be doing something kind of new for the movie review series, just to, I guess keep it alive in some sort of way. I'm going to be reviewing every single Spider-Man movie that has never been reviewed on this channel before. That'll be starting off with the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man, then moving on to Spider-Man 2, then Spider-Man 3, and then going on to the Mark Webb Amazing Spider-Man films, starting off with The Amazing Spider-Man 1, and then The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And that's it. That's all that's going to be reviewed. I don't know, this is kind of a random series that I wanted to do, just to review every single Spider-Man movie that has never been reviewed, because, you know, massive Spider-Man fan, I thought it'd be kind of fun. The way it's gonna work is that, like, it won't be like just like this video right now that'll be uploaded, and the next video will be the movie review of Spider-Man 2. There'll still be different, like, videos in between these. Every time a new movie review of Spider-Man comes out, the next video won't be another movie review. It'll be maybe some sort of different video between it, and then maybe the next video after that will be the movie review, just to keep the channel alive and make sure this series doesn't, like, die down the channel, just in case. So just in case that does end up happening, I'll still put different video ideas in the middle of these videos, just to make sure, like, you guys are still interested in our channel, just in case. So that's pretty much how it's gonna work. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. So let's get this shit started by talking about Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. The first live-action big-screen movie of my favorite superhero, Spider-Man, directed by Sam Raimi, coming out almost 20 years ago, and it's honestly shocking seeing the amount of work and effort put into this movie, and knowing that it came out back in 2002 is honestly pretty shocking. And yeah, you know, just the type of stuff that's shown in this movie, and then compared to all the other type of superhero movies that we get nowadays with just a bunch of CGI and just CGI, it's pretty impressive. It's very impressive. So, first and foremost for the review, what did I think of Spider-Man? What did I think of Spider-Man? The original Sam Raimi Spider-Man. Oh god, I don't know. What can I say? It's the classic Spider-Man story being brought to life in live action, and it's told very well in this movie. It's literally perfect, and it was really thanks to this movie that made Spider-Man, like, it really grew his what's the word you want to call it, just made him grow into this really popular superhero. And yeah, it was really thanks to this movie that he just grew as this really popular superhero. And, you know, it's obviously being told by Sam Raimi, and, you know, being directed by Sam Raimi, and of course he's told in loads of interviews about this is like his most challenging film he had ever made before, like, compared to all the other movies he made before this. It's very much shown. You know, he talked about how it was really challenging making this movie, and it's very much shown, and he really worked his butt off this movie. And yeah, he does a great job. Sam Raimi does a great job directing the movie, very, very clearly, and there's just about a lot of heart put into this movie, and just so much work, and it's very, very, very impressive. So, yeah, let's talk a little bit about the characters. Peter Parker, being played by Tobey Maguire. Now, looking back at this whole trilogy, I will say that Tobey Maguire, his performance isn't really anything too special. It's not like anything too iconic, but I just think he does a good enough job for his character, and Maguire's performance is just, you know, I wouldn't say it's anything too special, but, you know, he does get the job done, and he does a fine job. But overall, Peter Parker, the character, he is just very likable throughout this whole trilogy and in this movie. Like, you just can't hate this guy, and, you know, he goes through so much shit like typical Peter Parker, and you just wonder how is he able to put up with this stuff, and it's just, he's a very likable character. And yeah, Maguire's performance in this movie and in this whole trilogy, isn't really anything too special. It's just fine. It's good enough. He does a good enough job for what he's told to do. But overall, the character of Peter Parker is portrayed so perfectly in this movie. He's very likable. He's easily the most likable character I've ever seen out of any movie I've seen. That's just in my opinion. Yeah, he's great in this movie, Peter Parker. And yeah, you got other characters like Peter Parker's love interest, Mary Jane Watson, being played by Kirsten Dunst, and she does a pretty good job. Again, not a performance that's really anything too special. She does obviously scream way too much in this movie, and in this whole trilogy, as you guys already know, she does scream way too much, and yeah, it is very irritating. But yeah, she's probably the most likable her character has ever been in this movie, because she definitely gets worse as the movies continue. Yeah, as the movies continue, she gets way worse. But then you got some other characters, some other iconic characters like J. Jonah Jameson being played by J.K. Simmons, who portrays the character perfectly. He looks like J. Jonah Jameson. He sounds like J. Jonah Jameson. J. Jonah Jameson is perfect in this movie, honestly. And then you got some characters like Hoffman, who are kind of just there.
Spider-Man. Hoffman! Yeah?
And then you got the more heartfelt character in this movie, Aunt May, who is easily the best portrayal of Aunt May that we have gotten so far. Out of all actresses that have portrayed this character, she easily does the best job. I don't know what her name is, but best Aunt May. She feels like Aunt May, she looks like Aunt May. She is perfect in the whole trilogy as Aunt May. So, yeah, that's really all I can say with the other main characters. But now let's start talking about the villain of the movie, the Green Goblin, played by Willem Dafoe. And let me just say, first and foremost, his performance can seem a little bit cheesy and a little silly at times, but honestly, what do you really expect out of a character like the Green Goblin, honestly? He definitely does a great job of capturing the voice of the Green Goblin, this really menacing voice that you kind of would expect out of a character like this. And yeah, it sounds fucking perfect. And yeah, Willem Dafoe, the way he portrays the character of Green Goblin, Norman Osborn, whatever you want to go with, is very entertaining with how, really cheesy and silly it can be. It's a very entertaining performance, and, he does a great job. And we've all talked about it, the armored suit that he wears when he's, the Green Goblin. We've all talked about it, everyone's talked about it, and, it's not, it's not completely accurate to what he actually looks like in, the comics and all that, and, animated shows and whatever. It's not all that accurate, and, a lot of people don't really like it, but it's been many years now, and it's kind of just grew on me. It's grown on me at this point, and I don't really care too much about it. But it is very, very interesting of how it could have honestly looked. Now I want to start talking about the action scenes of the movie. Comparing this to the action scenes that we get pretty much in the whole Spider-Man trilogy, this probably has the weakest action, to my opinion. I don't know, just the action does improve a lot more in the next two movies, the second and third movie. But the action scenes are still pretty cool in this movie. Some pretty cool stuff does still happen. And for a movie that came out back in 2002, it does have some pretty impressive special effects. A few shots that do look a little bit messy. For example, I don't know, Green Goblin on his glider. Some shots do look a little bit meh. But for a movie that came out in 2002, it does have some actually pretty okay special effects CGI shots. So yeah, that's pretty good. There's the one action scene, one of the more memorable action scenes where it's Green Goblin and Spider-Man fighting in this abandoned area. I don't really fully remember. But it's a really different action scene compared to everything else we were getting in the movie. It's more brutal, and there's absolutely no music playing, and it honestly it just looks and sounds a lot better with no music. If it just had music in the background, it just wouldn't have sounded as good as it was. So if it had music in the background, it just wouldn't have sounded the same. It wouldn't have been as good. So yeah, it doesn't really work as much with music in it. They could have easily just slapped on some music during that scene, but they didn't, and it still sounded really cool and looked really cool. Yeah, overall, although it's not the best action scenes compared to the rest of the Spider-Man movies in the trilogy. It still has some really impressive action scenes and fight scenes and all that, and some actually, for its time, some pretty impressive special effects and CGI. So yeah, the movie actually does a pretty good job with its fight scenes, action scenes, CGI, special effects, and whatever. And they actually had some real sets during the making of this film. There was no CGI green screen stuff. They actually had some legit real sets, which is really impressive, and it's kind of something we don't really get nowadays with superhero movies, which is sad and is kind of not as impressive. So with this movie, it actually had real sets, and it was really impressive with what they did, and like I said, the amount of effort and heart they put into this movie, it was shown very clearly and very well in this movie, and that just makes me love it even more. Guys, this movie is a part of a trilogy that made me fall in love with this character and made me just a massive fan. So that way I am able to appreciate it a lot more. Even though it has some really minor flaws, I am in love with this movie. I love this movie. The amount of heart and effort put into this film is shown very clearly, and overall, I just love this movie. And should I even say if you should go watch Spider-Man? This movie came out almost 20 years ago. Every single Spider-Man fan should have already watched this. But if you haven't watched it, and if you're a massive Spider-Man fan, then watch it. Plain and simple. And that wraps up my review for Spider-Man. Thank you guys so much for watching. Post your comments down below of what you guys thought of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. And yeah, this is only just the beginning of our little Spider-Man movie review series. Because next time we're going to be looking at Spider-Man 2, where we're going to be diving into the...
Pizza time. Ah, you're a hack! Oh. My back!